Hey everyone, and welcome back. Elizabeth here. In this video we're going to go on and create the woman's corset cover from the Practical Designer for Women's and Mrs. Underwear. If you haven't watched the previous video on how to make this foundation garment, then you do need to watch that video before going on, because this is built on the foundation garment. So I'll just go ahead and jump in. You can kind of see that whole thing. To begin, divide the space equally of the entire armhole between, what does that say, H and N to get point E. I'm making point 4, pardon me. The scan on this book on the instructions is getting kind of hard to read, so I apologize if I kind of stumble a bit. So we're dividing between H and N, getting the midpoint, and that is going to be, this is the Practical Designer. So we'll call that point P for, remember in Valentina you can't call points just numbers, they have to have a letter attached to them, so we'll call it P4 instead of just 4 for that point there. Take out from each side of square a line down to 2, and then take out from each side of 2 1/4 inch, and from each side of 4, which is the breast line, 1/2 an inch. So 1/2 inch up here, 1/4 inch down there along the line. Oh, we should square down first. I'm gonna square down arbitrarily long and then come back and join those two to make a point right there where those lines intersect, which is our point 2 here, P2. And then I can bring our point out 1/4 inch and out this way 1/4 inch out here 1/2 an inch, and they actually have a point number for that, that's P5. Okay. And then 1/2 inch this way, which it says in the book will get you to point E, but I think their math was off because we're not getting to point E. So we have a new point in here that they don't have over here. Joy. So we're gonna connect these points with a curved line here and here, slightly curved line, to make our side seams. Barely curved at all, really. We'll do that later. According to this instruction, we will obtain a full bottom for the corset cover, but it should be necessary to make a more close-fitted waist. Take out at the waist from either side of 2 and 4 and 3, 2 and 1 and 3, 1 inch, and connect those lines. It's very wordy and confusing. So basically it's saying if you want a narrower fitted corset cover, if you want one with a little less fullness, where you can take out 1 inch on either side. So I'm going to put that in. Let me move these around. I'm kind of stuck up on each other. So from point 2, 1 inch will give us point P1. And 1 inch to the other side. For point P3. sure that's clear which is which. And then we're going to draw in a new curve for an optional, more fitted guideline. And because that's an option, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to change that to a dotted line so that it maybe will look a little less cluttered over here in the side seam area. That's all right. Now make the opening for the neck by dividing at the center back from A to B, making point 13, which will make the deepness of the back according to half the back depth, making it 3.5 inches deep for size 36, of course. So we're going to divide A to B along this A to T line. Length of line A to B divided by 2, which for this size equals 3.5, 0.13. And you can see that the length of that line right here. Then take the shoulder width from L to 0.12, which is 2 inches. And curve from 0.12 to 0.13. Kind of get that pretty close to the other side. That looks alright. And there's our back neckline. Now measure the same 2 inches from U to 0.11. And I'm going to link those. What was that? 13? 0.13 to... Well, it's not coming up, is it? Cancel. So join here to here. Oh, 0.12. That's why it wasn't coming up. Silly me. Length of lines, type the right number, L to 0.12. And that gives us 0.11. Okay, now measure the same 2 inches from U to 11 and divide equally the space at the front edge from S to W. S to W, find the center point. S to W. And that is 0.8. Scoot this over so you can see what's going on next. We're going to extend 0.8 to 10, 3 inches. 3 inches this way. So I'm just going to square it out. Hold that shift key, square it out for 3 inches to get P10. Now connect 10 to 7 with a straight line. 0.7, it does not give you a measurement for. It's going to be along this line and slightly below the waist. If this is about an inch here, that's probably about 3/4, maybe 7/8. Let's try 3/4. We can always move it later if we want it longer. What does that look like? A little Z kind of? I'll just leave it. And then kind of and over. So let's pull down an inch from our point A to there and see if that gets us this point P6 that we're looking for. And if not, we can always change it. These kind of things, they don't give you measurements because they would change with the styles. So this is kind of just arbitrary depending on what's in fashion right now. I want to give that a little more. Let's try 1.5 to get to this point here. And that looks about like that. For that P6. So we'll do 1 inch for P7 and 1.5 inches for that P6. Okay. Connect 10 to 7 with a straight line. Showing our lines here, 10 to 7. Looks good. Which makes the edge of the front from N to Z allow 1 inch. Or is that X to Z? X to Z allow 1 inch. Okay, well let's change that to 1 then. And then we'll call that P Z. Earlier they called this point over here Z. Kind of jumping around on us. Allow 1 inch and connect line 3 towards Z and 6 and curve from Z to 7 with a 1/2 inch as shown on the diagram. That's the 1/2 inch here, I'm pretty sure, to point 6. So we're going to curve here and bring it back over here for our guidelines. We're also going to allow at 1 and 3 a 1/2 inch at the bottom of the waist. So we're going to bring these points down a 1/2 inch below the waist. So let's do that first and then we'll draw in our curve. Dotted line. That one also gets a dotted line. Okay, so now we need to draw in our 2 curves for the front. That's going to be one from here. Let's smooth that a bit. Oh, missed it. That looks alright. And then we're going to draw our curve from the narrow point and then the curve to the wider point for our hemline options. So here that one goes to point 11. And that's the hem for the narrower option. So it gets a dotted line. And then we get our point for the corset cover with more volume. So those are our options there. Here on the back of the corset cover, let's draw in our point little bit of an upward curve. Looks like it's touching the line for about halfway there. And we'll make that one dotted. And I'm not sure why that turned blue. There we go. And then our final hemline. Which looks pretty good. Zoom to best fit. Now make all curves on children of the Corset diagram. Curve the armhole at the back from L to 5 and at the front from U to E. And if you look, our armhole is going to curve into these little V guidelines here. This one's going to curve to that little V guideline here, and that kind of gives you somewhere you can point it off to. A7 there. Not that. Down there. Up above the line. That looks pretty good. Let's also throw in our neckline curve, which is going to curve to point P11. That's not it. There you go. And for our back armhole, there we have that. They have another dotted guideline here, about a half and an inch in from our C and our A. So let's go ahead and throw that in before we finish up. Okay, we're going to connect those with a nice fat dashy line. So what it's saying is to cut out this corset cover, if you need more fullness at the back, you follow the dash line. If you want it to be more fitted along the center back, you follow this kind of a dart shape here. If you want more fullness at the side seams and along the front, you follow the solid line. And if you want a narrower, more fitted corset cover, you follow the dash line. Pretty simple. I'm not going to read all that to you. It's very wordy. Last thing we have to do is to make this ripple, it calls it, or the ruffle, basically. So let's start a new pattern piece. We'll call it ripple because that's what it calls it. Draw a straight line down from 1 to 2, measuring half of the waist measurement. So let's do our waist divided by 2. Okay. B2. Zoom out. Oh, we were way in there, weren't we? Okay. That's fine. Halfway between those points, we get this point here, point 3. Measure down 3 inches for point 4 and 3 inches for point 5. Draw a straight line from 1 to point 5. curves. Kind of keeping it touching for what it looks like on that side there. Is that 3 inches? No, I did 5 inches there. No wonder it looks so big. And that's 3 inches. That looks a little better. Divide equally, then curve out from 2. Now square a line out from 1 to 6. Measure from 2 to 7, 3 inches. And it needs to be, what angle is that? That's angle 0, and we want it the other side here, so I'm going to change that angle to 180 to flip it, and then we can draw in our final curve. Try and get the shape about right. Cool, and we want to use this tool to flip it. We want to select the curve, hold Control. We want this point. We want that point, and we want that curve. Enter. Select the origin point. B4. Okay, and that way we get a symmetrical curve. It does look like it's kind of raising up here in the. You notice when we use this flipping tool, when I modify the curves on here, they modify on the other side as well, so it stays even. Great, and our final thing to do is just join these lines. Cool, so that's our ruffle there. That concludes the lesson in the book for our corset cover. Our Valentina, last thing we need to do is our workpiece tool to send these over so that we can print them and test our patterns. Hold Shift when this arrow on curve is pointing in the opposite of clockwise direction. This is pointing in the direction that we're moving, so this is not, so I'm going to hold Shift and hit Enter. And we can come over here to our details screen, and there's our ruffle, which was the easy one. Now let's do one of these up here. Let's do the front first. Oops. So remember, always drafting in a clockwise direction. I like to start up here in the corner. Got that one. Armhole. I'm gonna follow the chunkier line. Be sure to get this little bit we added on. Hold Shift. That point, oops. I unselected it. I was trying to get that point right there. Hold shift for that curve. Get that point and hit enter. Name of detail, this is our front. Let's check that out. Looks pretty good. Final piece. We'll start here. Hold shift for that one. I can't see that point. Let's see if I can get it. There we go. Over here to P12, oh, don't hold shift. P13, and then I'm gonna follow the fitted back line, but you can follow this dotted line here as well if you want a little more volume. Click the curve, hold shift for that one, get your point, and enter. Beautiful. Still some more room there. Okay, so remember that seam allowances were built into the pattern. So we have seam allowances and they are built in. Apply that. If you don't hit this built in, it's going to make extra seam allowances. We don't need those, so we do hit built in. Apply. And seam allowances for this book are 3/8 of an inch. We can add our labels here. This is pattern piece A. There's 2 of those. It's not on the fold. And then of course to turn your labels on, you do have to make a template for it. I just use one of the standard ones. To make a template, you just press the plus here, click on these and tell it what it is. To get whatever data you want into your pattern piece, apply that. Now you can say that your detail label will be visible. There it is. Grain line, visible. We'll say for 5 inches. Apply. I didn't add any like match marks for lining up the pieces. This is a pretty simple pattern, so it doesn't really need them. So I won't mess around with that. Bring that in, make it a little bigger. My front, cut 2. You have seam allowance and it's built in. Use my basic old boring template. You are B, there's 2 of you. Grain line. Here's my label. This pattern piece is the back. This pattern piece is the riddle. Seam allowance is built in. Labels. C. We'll need 2 of those. We'll need a tiny grain line. Did I turn those labels on? I always forget to do that. Right in the middle. And there it is. So you can play around with this and make your own printing layout and hit it here. Export, we'll let you export whatever shape you have here. however you have it laid out. Maybe like that to print. That should be about 6 pieces of paper maybe. And that's if you want to take it over to Adobe Reader to print it, which I like to do, and I'll go ahead and show you that. There it goes. File open. Valentina layouts. There it is. So you can see this is the layout we just made with our labels and our grain lines. No seam allowances visible because they're built in. How to print this in Adobe Acrobat. So you just hit the poster button here and it'll show you what it's going to look like tiled on pieces of paper that you can print together or tape together. How much you want those papers to overlap, and if you want cut marks, which gives you little marks here that help you tape them all back together like a puzzle. And that'll print it at 100%. It's pretty good. Your other option is to try and fight with the Valentina layout. So you can have your different sizes of paper here, but you do have to have paper bigger than your layout itself. You can't choose a small size and then it'll show you how to lay it out in the tiled patterns. So just kind of play around with the settings here. I like to do it in groups. You know, it always kind of lays them out strangely. I've noticed. Let's try the 30-inch paper. Yes. That's kind of weird. I don't know. I like to do it better here and then export it into Adobe. But of course, you can export it from here as well in whatever layout it has chosen for you. And you can also, you can preview what it would look like as a tiled PDF, which would be great. I really like these guidelines that it throws in, but I don't like the way it lays out the patterns all wonky. So I don't usually use this. So that concludes this pattern for the corset cover. I am going to sew this up to test the size using the instructions from this book, Clothing for Women. I don't know if I'm going to do a video for that yet. I might just photograph it and put it on the blog. We'll see. Just to play around with, we can toss in our separate measurements in Valentina. Let's see how those look. Well, that grades pretty nicely. It looks almost the same. Sometimes you do have to watch these curves here when you load in the different sizes. I would probably pull that one down. It looks a little high. But it looks like it grades pretty evenly. Cool. Go ahead, be sure to subscribe to my channel for my next video. I'll keep going with the Practical Designer's Guide for Women's and Mrs. Underwear. The next lesson is a tighter fitting corset cover and then a brassiere. How saucy. I do want to do all the undergarments for a late Victorian outfit before I continue any more drafting any outer garments, because of course we can't test the fit of the outer garments unless we have undergarments to build them on. It just won't look right. So I'm going to continue with this book before I jump back over and draft more outer garments. So go ahead and subscribe if you're into that, and I will talk to you later.